Now to our year-and-a-half-long investigation into how private equity investors are siphoning millions of dollars away from community hospitals. Now the Senate is looking into what we found. CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. John LaPook traveled to Massachusetts, where one company's efforts to squeeze out profits has left a healthcare system reeling.
Blackstone is an American financial giant with over $1 trillion in assets under management. Real estate is one of Blackstone's major divisions.
Blackstone is really in the business of marketing investment products. A byproduct of that is they became a very large landlord.
The company has an ownership interest in at least 274,000 rental housing units. That likely makes it one of the largest landlords in the United States.
One day after Austin Hurst worked a grueling 35-hour Mother's Day weekend behind the grill at Red Lobster, he found out he'd lost his job.
I found out through a customer who showed up at the locked doors. General manager never reached out. Corporate never reached out. I still haven't received an email.
The 22-year-old, one of thousands of Red Lobster employees, suddenly unemployed after the chain restaurant filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, shutting down nearly 100 locations across 28 states.
As soon as Mother's Day was done, they shut the doors and didn't tell anybody.
Private equity is a $4.4 trillion global industry, an empire of money, power, and influence operating quietly behind the curtain of the American economy. It has minted more billionaires than oil and technology combined, yet most people couldn't name a single firm behind it. It's the apex of high finance, the ultimate goal of every polished MBA, every LinkedIn-obsessed future founder, and every business bro who talks in acronyms like LBO, IRR, and EBITDA. But to millions of everyday Americans, private equity represents something else entirely. The unexplained reason your childhood toy store is gone. And your hospital ER has a wait time of 6 hours. Your rent has doubled. And your dream of owning a home feels more distant than ever. It's not just a business model, it's a quiet force reshaping your world. Because while it operates in boardrooms, private equity's impacts are felt everywhere. In the strip mall that got bulldozed for luxury condos, the nursing home that stopped hiring enough nurses, and the iconic retail chains that collapsed under the weight of invisible debt. So, what do these firms actually do? What gives them so much power? And how did they end up owning and gutting such massive swaths of the American economy? This is the story of how private equity consumed America. Private equity is simple in theory. At its core, it's just an investment strategy focused on buying and selling assets that aren't traded on public stock market. These assets can be almost anything, from early-stage tech startups and North Dakota oil fields, to song catalogs, carbon credits, toll roads, and even the rights to entire hospital systems. If it holds value, there's likely a private equity firm somewhere trying to acquire it. When these firms invest in startups and help new businesses get off the ground, we usually call them venture capitalists. They provide funding to early-stage companies in exchange for a stake in the future, and often the hope of a big payday if the company goes public or gets acquired. If they focus on intangible assets, like licensing music rights, trademarks, or intellectual property, they're often called asset managers or alternative investment firms. They might never touch the day-to-day operations of a business, yet quietly earn returns by buying and selling rights and revenue streams the rest of us never think about. But there's another side to private equity, a much more aggressive and consequential one. This is the realm of buyout funds, firms that acquire entire companies, typically using borrowed money. These are the funds that swoop in, take over, restructure, and flip businesses for profit. And that's where the real damage begins. Because when private equity enters the world of buyouts, it's not just investing in companies. It's reshaping them, often in ways that prioritize short-term profits over long-term stability. The mission isn't to build, it's to extract value rapidly and leave before the dust settles. So, you want to become a private equity overlord? Surprisingly, it's not as complicated as it sounds, at least not on paper. The entire model boils down to 3 disturbingly simple steps. set up the right legal structures, and start playing the most lucrative game in capitalism. Here's how it works. First, you set up your empire, starting with a Delaware limited partnership. Why Delaware? Because it's the Vegas of corporate America. Low taxes, vague rules, and courts that tend to side with business. You're the general partner, the one in charge. Your rich investors? They're limited partners. They put up the money, stay quiet, and collect a share of the profit. Next, you write the LPA, the Limited Partnership Agreement. This legal doc makes the rules, splits the profits, and hands you almost total control, while protecting your personal assets if things go sideways. Think of it as your financial invisibility cloak. But wait, you also need a management company. This is your real HQ. Here, you hire a small army of Ivy League MBAs to crunch numbers, scout deals, and polish pitch deck. Their salaries? Paid straight from the fund's fees. By the end, you've built a sleek legal machine, one that shifts the risk to others, funnels the rewards to you, and keeps your name off the mess if it all blows up. Step 2. Raise money and borrow even more. Now comes the real trick. You don't need that much money to buy companies, just enough to borrow a lot more. Say you raise $100 million from your investors. Instead of spending it all on one company, you use it as a down payment to borrow hundreds of millions more. That move? It's called a leveraged buyout, or LBO. Here's how it works. You find a company, maybe a retail chain or hospital group, borrow most of the money to buy it, and then make that company pay back the loan. The business becomes both the collateral and the debtor. It's like buying a house, but instead of paying the mortgage yourself, you make the tenant cover it, even if they can't afford it. And if the whole thing collapses, you still walk away with fees. The company and its workers get stuck with the mess. This debt-fueled model lets you stretch one pot of money across many deals, amplifying your reach while keeping your own risk low. Step 3. Squeeze and flip. Once you've bought a company, your mission isn't to grow it, it's to make it look more valuable on paper, fast. That usually means cutting costs, boosting margins, and polishing the books for resale. Here's what that looks like. A layoff staff, especially in areas like customer service or R&D. Cut wages, trim benefits, reduce headcount. A sell-off assets, buildings, equipment, even whole departments. A raise prices, even if it drives away customers. A delay payments to suppliers or squeeze better terms. Or add more debt, sometimes just to pay yourself through something called a dividend recap. If the CEO won't play along, replace them with someone who will. Because you're not here to run the business, you're here to flip it. After a few years of cost-cutting and financial engineering, you exit. A take it public IPO. A sell it to a bigger company, or hand it off to another PE firm who repeats the cycle. You take your cut. Your team calls it value creation. And if the company falls apart later, that's not your problem. Private equity has a go-to move. It's called multiple arbitrage. Sounds complex, but it's just a fancy way of saying buy low, sell high, by changing how a business is valued. Here's how it works. You find a small business making $1 million in profit. Because it's small and not super scalable, it might sell for 5x earnings, $5 million. Now, instead of stopping there, you buy 10 of these, same size, same price, and bundle them together. You merge operations, slap on a new logo, streamline some costs, and present it as one big, polished company. And suddenly, buyers see scale, stability, and potential, and are willing to pay more. Maybe 10x earnings instead of 5x. So your $50 million bundle is now worth $100 million, even if the actual profits haven't changed. That's called multiple expansion, and it's the engine behind most roll-up strategies. You didn't have to invent anything new or boost sales. Just package it better and sell the illusion of growth. And the cherry on top? Most of this is done with borrowed money. So if the roll-up works, you and your investors win big. If it crashes under the debt, the businesses take the fall, not you. Let's be real. The private equity model works brilliantly for making money. It's built to maximize returns, and on that front, it delivers. But behind the profits lies a massive human cost. Take Toys R Us. It wasn't failing because kids stopped playing with toys. It was buried in debt after a private equity buyout, forced to cut costs, skip reinvestment, and pay massive interest. In the end, over 30,000 workers lost their jobs, most with no severance. The business didn't die, it was drained. In healthcare, the stakes are even higher. Private equity has snapped up thousands of nursing homes and doctor offices. The result? Fewer nurses, more billing, and lower quality care. Medicine becomes a numbers game, and patients lose. Local journalism? Same story. PE firms buy up newsrooms, fire reporters, cut budgets, and flip the buildings. Real reporting is replaced with clickbait. Communities lose watchdogs, and democracy weakens. Even the American dream of homeownership is under threat. PE giants bought up homes during the 2008 crash and turned them into rentals. They outbid families, raised rents, and now control entire neighborhoods. You're not buying a home anymore, you're bidding against Wall Street. And across industries, from media to education to housing, the pattern repeats. Fewer players, higher prices, worse service. Also, a few investors can walk away richer. Because when private equity wins, the public too often pays the price, one leveraged buyout at a time. Private equity sounds harmless enough. Pool some money, buy struggling companies, fix them up, sell for a profit. Simple, right? In theory, it can provide fresh capital, smart management, and a second chance for businesses on the brink. That's the polished pitch you'll hear at finance conferences and in glossy investor decks, all about value creation. But in practice, modern private equity has become something else entirely, a machine built to maximize investor profits by squeezing value out of everything it touches, companies, workers, even entire communities. It's not about building better businesses. It's about cutting costs, loading on debt, and extracting every last dollar, regardless of the fallout. Meanwhile, the risk is carefully pushed onto others. If things go south, the firm walks away with fees in hand. If it works, they cash out big. The jobs lost, the broken towns, the gutted services, those aren't line items. They're just externalities. And unless the system changes, private equity won't stop. There's still more to buy, strip, and flip, from small newspapers and local hospitals to rental homes and water systems. Without real reform in taxes, transparency, and accountability, this cycle will only accelerate. Because the playbook is just simple. Buy it, leverage it, gut it, sell it, then move on to the next. And if you enjoyed this, please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. With that, this is Visionomics, signing out.